Casey the Beef Cregan just got disconnected minutes before we went on the air, so it's me flying solo. I'm known as Black Mart. Grew out the goatee, but it was looking really, really gray, so I wanted to try something. Casey says I look 25 years younger. Can't believe it. I'm assuming Casey's going to come back. We're going to talk some sports tonight on the Sluggo podcast. This is episode 78 of this show. We did about 70 in a row. We've taken some weeks off. Casey's on the road tonight in Summerville, South Carolina, and he's having obviously some connection problems. So you got my beautiful, ugly mug all to yourself until Casey gets back on. And last time it took him several minutes. So Beef is on the road in Summerville, South Carolina, working for the fam, making some hard-earned cash, and I'm sure he'll join us again in just a minute. Never imagined doing this show myself, flying solo. So we'll see how it goes until we can get Beef back on the old machine here. And Kevron checks in. I'm assuming you're from Cope, South Carolina. Kevron, you said good evening. Good evening. You left something out of there, Kevron. Something like Go Tigers is what you usually put on there. But either way, we're happy you signed in. And so I don't know whether to move on without Beef. I guess I need to, unless you want hours and hours of dead air or minutes and minutes of dead air. So running the show myself here, trying to figure out what to talk about, because Beef usually does most of the talking, and Beef is back. Beef, you left me.
Sorry about that. Yeah, some technical difficulties. We haven't had them in a week or so. So
we haven't had them in 2 weeks.
That's right, 2 weeks. So I'm working on my phone here, and we'll see what happens. You never know.
All right. Kevron checked in and said good evening. I told him he left out something there, the Go Tigers, and there goes Beef again. You went black. I can hear you, but we can't see you, Beef. We can hear you, but
that
can't
might
see
be the
you.
better way.
That might work for me tonight with my with the new look. Anyway, I was telling the people you are in beautiful Summerville, South Carolina, old stomping grounds. Sister used to live there. Nephew lives right around the corner there in Goose Creek. So what's happening in Summerville besides you're blacked out?
It's really crazy here, just how big this place is getting and gotten. And I'm sure you haven't seen it in a couple of years or a year or so since this pandemic thing. But man, some roads that I never saw that existed are now zooming with cars and people, and places built up a good bit. And I know when my wife and I were thinking about moving this direction, this was the one town that was on the list, just based on my old memories. But man, oh man, it's busy. It's hopping out here. It's good though. It's a good busy. I'm enjoying my quick little stay here in Somerville.
So you chose the island life over Somerville, or is that just circumstances?
That's how it worked out.
Okay.
That's how it worked out. Yes.
Yeah. Well, I mean, either way, it would have been great. You'd have been close to Charleston there in Somerville. Good little town as far as I know. Like you said, it's been years. I think I've been back once since 2015. Though we are talking about this summer, so there may be something happening this summer. We're still in the midst of planning. So
very nice.
Hey, Beef, since we last talked, Georgia has become the national champions. You and I's worst nightmare have been realized, and it appears the Bulldogs are set up. They defeated Alabama 33-18. It appears they're set up for long-term sustained success. Now, anything can happen. We know that. We saw what happened with LSU. But the recruiting classes Georgia's putting together, they actually recruited some quarterbacks. Nothing against Stetson Bennett. He's a national championship quarterback. But, man, it looks like they're built to last for a while.
Yeah, you really can't take anything from them. They showed up. They played a depleted Alabama team, but that's not Georgia's fault, right? Especially no one's going to feel bad for Nick Saban and his 5-star after 5-star just because a couple 5-stars went down. Ajay Hall was a highly rated 5-star as well. he just couldn't catch a cold. But hats off to Georgia. They came out, they played their game plan. Stetson Bennett, the game manager, had two really big throws there to kind of separate Georgia from Alabama. And Zamir White and James Cook were great. George Pickens with his one catch was fantastic. That tight end is something else, and that's not even mentioning the defense. N'Kobe Dean is as good as they come out. I'm still not sold on the defensive tackle, but it was good to see old Darion Kendrick win another one with another school. He's probably going to be the answer of a trivia question, but they are built to succeed, no question, with 5-star after 5-star that they're recruiting. But it took them a long time with all those 5 stars to finally get over the hump. And so we'll see if they're built to last, but they'll be up there again, I'm sure.
Well, there's some theories out there that it's very much like Clemson pre-national championship, right? Couldn't get over the hump, got over the hump, and then just after that, the confidence grows, and it just turns out, and that works for fans too. I don't know about you, but it certainly worked for me because I was the guy always questioning if they could ever do it. And I think I told you the story, I know I did, that when they won the national championship after the 2016 season, I was the guy running around the house telling my wife, this will never happen again in my lifetime. You don't understand how big this is, the first time in 34 years or 34 years, et cetera, et cetera. And then turn around happened 2 years later because it was a different team and different mentality coming from the team. So I don't know. We'll see. It's to be determined, and we'll see.
Yeah,
no doubt.
I think I'm hitting buttons here, so I don't know.
Your face is back on the screen. Everybody's happy.
Fortunate, but they're good, man. And I think you're exactly right by the way that you were talking about the Clemson thing. You don't know if you'll ever see it again. And kind of funny, where I live, I'm close to the border of Georgia and South Carolina, and so I run into some good nature ribbing and some good Georgia fans, actually, if that's an oxymoron, maybe. But I've told them, like, how you doing? How you feeling? And a couple older ones said, I hope I get to see another one in my lifetime because I've waited 41 years. And I've heard that now 4 different occasions. So I guess it's not lost on them how hard it is and how long it's been for them to reach the pinnacle. But they're here.
No doubt. And we always, college football fans in general, Clemson fans specifically, always had that over Georgia, right? It's been 40 years. It's out the window now. It's out the window. But congratulations to Georgia. Want to be a good college football fan. It was a good game. At least 3 quarters of it was good. The last quarter was a smashing blowout. So it was a good game, a lot of fun to watch. Too bad Clemson wasn't there, but hey, segue. I learned something from the Chop and Beef show. Segue right over to Clemson. Since we last talked, it's been a couple weeks. Clemson has 2 new commits. Cole Turner, of course, the younger brother of Nolan Turner, who, there's a lot of consternation when Nolan was given a scholarship, and it turned out that he became a really good, solid player. Now, it took a few years. He's a developmental player. Dabo likes to say it's a developmental program. Took a few years. This young man, 6'2", 178. He's not rated. There are no stars by his name. But, if he has any of the genes of Nolan Turner, I'll take him. And frankly, they need some guys like that, right? They need some guys that will just catch the ball, for example. What a marvelous thing. The other one's a cornerback out of Douglasville, Georgia, Miles Oliver. He's rated, I think he's a 3-star, I'm not sure, but rated, not rated very highly. So 2 new additions to the class.
I love the Turner deal. I read a great article today on si.com, Clemson, allclemson.com. I'm not sure who wrote it, whether it was JP or one of the other fine writers over there, but they were talking about how people in the Clemson fan base are, the thing that's gotten the most steam, I think the narrative that's gotten the most steam with the Clemson folks, especially with this small class, is that coaches' kids are going to be getting scholarships and other walk-ons are because the numbers are so down. And then here comes Nolan Turner's little brother, who, as very well noted, Dabo's college roommate, died of ALS. And so he promised the dad that he would take care of his kids and see them into men. Well, Nolan Turner had 0 stars too, and we saw how much of an asset he was for the program. So, yes, it is developmental, as you said. Yes, he may or may not get on the field ever, but I think this is a great one. I think this is a good one, and it like you said, if he's as motivated as his brother. And usually the little brothers, I am one, are a little bit more chip on the shoulder kind of thing because, I'm not my brother. I don't want to be my brother, but I want to be better than my brother. Hopefully he's got a little bit of that in him. And, hey, Hunter Renfrow didn't have many stars either when he came to Clemson. I'm not comparing the two. I'm just saying don't let the stars navigate the person. And as far as Miles Oliver, I watched a little bit of his film the last couple of days. He must have flashed for Mike Reed or Dabo or somebody. He looks fluid. He's kind of a slighter kid, but I guess they think his frame's going to be able to be bulked up a little bit. 3-star out of Georgia. We'll see. We'll see. I think it's a depth player. Didn't have a lot of great, quote unquote, great offers. Georgia Tech, I think, and a couple FCS teams, but. If Clemson, they've built up that equity, right, Marty? So you kind of trust the process. They need numbers. They need guys. Maybe this is the highest rated DB they had left on their board.
And that's a great point. Everybody talks about depth. Well, 5 stars don't come to school to be depth, right? No. Especially not if you're Tate Martell. But 5 stars don't come to school for depth, or 4 stars even for that matter. So, yeah, they need bodies. Really, they need practice bodies, if nothing else, right? John Chansey chimes in and says, at this point, I'm good with the guys who are all in, regardless of the stars by name.
Oh, 1,000%.
Yep, definitely agree with that, John.
Can I just go off on real quick a second,
yes.
Just a sidestep? What you were just saying about 5 stars not being depth guys. I was having a conversation with a Florida alum yesterday who was so excited they just got the Sun Belt Freshman of the Year, a running back from Louisiana, transferred to Florida, followed the head coach. And so now that puts 5 or 6, and maybe 6 pretty top level running backs in that room. And so I told the kid, so all right, so who's transferring out? And that's with ETN in getting in recruiting. And he said, what are you talking about? It's depth. Gone are the days of depth anymore for these kids. And as much as it pains me, I'm sorry, there's one football. There's 6 running backs, and you got kind of 3 or 4 that are going to be freshman, sophomore area. Someone's leaving that program, and this person got very offended that I said that. And I just said, do you follow the game nowadays? 3 years ago, different story. I get it. Depth, Georgia, Alabama, they do it all the time. Nowadays, I mean, JT Daniels is in the portal again.
As soon as somebody finds out they're not going to get as many snaps as they think they deserve, they're gone. And I don't remember who it was, but somebody put out, there's 1,800 players in the portal. It ain't just Clemson, folks. It ain't just Clemson. They're all over the place. There's 1,800 players without a school that theoretically gave up a scholarship to go into the portal. And you hear about the JT Daniels and the Tate Martells and the Spencer Rattlers, but you don't hear about 1,785 of those guys that are sitting out there who gave up theoretically a scholarship or some type of cachet at that school they were at. I don't know, cachet is not the right word, but some type of benefit at the school they're at.
I don't know the number, but I think Morgan Thomas from the Morgan Thomas Show put it out the other day that there's something like 17 full 85-man rosters that are available.
Yeah, that's probably where I got that number from. I don't remember, somebody on Twitter, but it's going to happen. It's going to happen at Clemson again. Just get used to it. Don't get upset. People are going to transfer until
people are going to get upset. That's just the nature.
Until it all plays out and kids start realizing that the grass is not always greener. It's going to take a few years, and that's what Dabo says. Rob Schreiber, hey, he's the winner of our contest, Casey. He said the day's coming where schools are going to lose kids for having the temerity to recruit the kids' position. 100% agree. They won't even wait uh, to summer camp or fall camp. They'll see you recruit a 5-star running back. I'm going
Oh,
somewhere else. Great.
it's
Uh,
a great point, and it's. I mean, we're
great.
seeing it already almost. I mean, not quite there yet, but it's coming. Like that's something that 5 years ago, again, you're like, no, that's
Yeah.
depth. That's good. He's going to sit a year. These guys aren't sitting here anymore, man.
And speaking of recruiting, Casey the Beef Cregan, we talked about KJ Henry coming back last time when I went through my notes. I said, hey, this is something we can talk about, but we talked about it a couple of weeks ago. But Xavier Thomas is also returning. That Clemson defense for next year is looking pretty good. I mean, lost some big names obviously in the defensive backfield, especially Skalski at linebacker is going to be hard to replace. We said the same thing about Ben Bulware though, and here comes Skalski, so we'll see there. But pretty good looking defense for next year for Old West.
What a surprise, Xavier Thomas. I think I was on here a couple of weeks ago talking about his little meme that he put on Tiger Commenter saying, "Hey, run it back one more time," and he did the little deuces with the kid fading out to oblivion. But I guess the rumor was, and the same Tiger Commenter on Twitter said that he had big news, so he must have known something. Maybe got a DM or knew people or something, but he sat on that for a long time. But the rumor was that he didn't get the draft grade that he wanted. Why not? I mean, he's gonna be another one that's gonna have a PhD when he leaves Clemson, and man, that's gonna help, especially because he came out and said, if you thought last year was good, it wasn't anywhere near my potential. Just wait till 22. So that's exciting for Clemson defense to just keep adding these guys. And I'm not worried about the linebackers. The DBs a little bit, just because we haven't really seen those guys behind Booth and Goodrich. So just the linebackers, I think, are going to be just fine.
Cool. And speaking of Tiger commenter, Chris, he and I go back a while. He used to help me out on Southern News Reserve. Guy's in the know, and when he says something, I pay attention. And he had texted me. A little bit more than he put on Twitter. So I was like, okay. And, you know, he's got his sources. You got yours. You know, I mean, you're best friends with
He's got better ones than me.
Well, you're best friends with the offensive coordinator. Isn't that what you told me?
And new defensive line coach, right?
Yes. You're becoming friends with the whole coaching staff. I'm expecting Dabo to come over your shoulder and check in.
Wouldn't that be awesome?
Hey, Casey, speaking of transfers, Hunter Johnson is coming back to Clemson. Now, Dabo dips into the transfer portal, kind of pseudo, graduate transfer kind of deal. But here's what I took out of this. On December 29th, Clemson's quarterback room was DJ Uiagalelei and a couple of walk-ons and a freshman with a busted knee. Fast forward 2 weeks later, and they got 3 5-stars in there with Cade Klubnik on campus and Hunter Johnson coming in. Went from one guy and a bag of balls, no offense to anybody, but one guy and a couple of walk-ons to 3 5-stars now. So I'm assuming Billy Wiles is going to be in the transfer portal soon.
I don't know. I don't know if Helms or Wiles are going to be going to the transfer portal necessarily. But yeah, especially listening to Streeter a couple of weeks ago when he got the job, talking about it was right before the bowl game, just how prepared and ready that those two guys were and how they've kind of competed to push DJ a little bit. Well, throwing now Klubnik and Hunter Johnson, even if Hunter Johnson just made the call as reported that he just wanted to come back and be a GA, and Dabo kind of talked him into like, why don't you try one more year? Just once again, depth kind of thing.
Yep.
I think that speaks volumes to both the player and the coach. And I think Darian Rencher even put it out on Twitter, like, don't burn bridges no matter when, just because he's now going to be afforded an opportunity. And the first thing that we were talking about in our text thread the other day was he wants to be a coach. And
yes.
I mean, we saw it last year at South Carolina with Zeb Nolan, giving him an opportunity. I think even though he was hired to be a GA, but he had that extra year of eligibility. He showed flashes down there. I think, like John Chansey's saying here, Johnson is a nice insurance policy if DJ doesn't step up and Cade isn't ready quite yet. Perfect. He's a stopgap. And he's going to have some talented players, which he lacked at Northwestern.
Yes, definitely lacked that at Northwestern. I've talked about this, and speaking of Chris on Tiger Commenter, he and I and Matt Wilczewski, another guy that helped us out. He is at Dear Old Clemson on Twitter. Um, we had a text chat going about Cade, and I've seen plenty of his games. I mean, heck, he crushed Parker's team right over my shoulder over here, half a mile from the house, and they beat him. I want to say like 73-6 or something, but um, I've seen a lot of his games. He looks skinny. He's 6'2" ish, 186, and that looks decent size in high school, right? He doesn't kind of stand out as a smaller guy in high school, but you're talking about 275-pound linemen when you're dealing with 310, 325 defensive linemen. It's going to be a different deal. I hope he can put on some weight. I have every confidence in his makeup and what I've seen. I mean, Westlake is a school, and I always say this, so bear with me. Drew Brees, Nick Foles, Sam Ellinger, Klubnik. I mean, just the kicker for Baltimore, Justin
Tucker.
whatever. Tucker,
Tucker.
the greatest kicker in the history of the NFL. Um, that's not even counting the owner of Silk Road, by the way. uh, but anyway, the pedigree's impeccable. They play at the highest level of Texas football, and they are incredibly good at it. Now, they didn't blow out anybody in the championship game, the team in the championship game, and they didn't last year in the championship game. But they went through like 3 rounds of playoffs, beating teams 62-7 in the highest level of Texas football. So there's nothing better than what he's been playing against. So I'm confident in his ability. We talked about this before. Is he going to be Trevor or Deshaun or maybe some combination of those? I don't know. I mean, everybody develops differently. Some 5-star quarterbacks don't. I think we saw some of that this year. Some are better than their ranking. So we'll see where it ends up. But I'm confident that the young guy is going to absorb the coaching, learn, and do the right things. Will he get the results Deshaun or Trevor had? Who knows? He needs the team around him. That's one of the things I pointed out. It's not all on DJ, right? There's plenty of times where he threw passes that could be caught and they were dropped or missed or wrong routes run or went off their hands for interceptions or any number of things, right? So you need the quarterback, but you also need some receivers. There's no Mike Williams, T. Higgins, and Hunter Renfrow running around out there, right? There's some guys that could be that good, but they're not right now. So it's not all on DJ.
Yeah, I think there's a lot to, in my mind anyway, the last 2 quarterbacks, big-time 5-star quarterbacks that Clemson's gotten have been over 6'5", 6'4", 6'5". DJ's a big kid. Trevor was a huge, tall, lanky kid as well, and kind of still is that way, although he put on some weight. I just think for what Clemson fans are used to, Cade's a little slight. You look at the national championship game quarterbacks, both those guys are pretty slight too. So you need an offensive line to be able to protect them, and if they're able to protect them, maybe that size doesn't matter. But in the Clemson offense, you want a little bit of girth, I think, the way that they run the quarterback a little bit. And so and Cade's been hurt in high school a little bit, right? He had a shoulder, I think.
Yeah.
So you worry about that. Deshaun was hurt a little bit in high school and then in college. So, I hope nothing but the best for the kid. Quite honestly, I'll go on record and say I hope DJ's the quarterback next year. But it kind of contradicts what I said at the open of the show with the 5-star after 5-star kid. Do you keep Klubnik after year 1 if DJ has a fantastic year? We'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. And I did want to mention something else, Chris. Tiger commenter brought up about DJ. Um, and I heard this on a Twitter live. He was, what's it called? Twitter Spaces. He was on. Um, he was talking about, he's a physical therapist. Chris is a physical therapist. That's his job. And he was talking about, he noticed DJ was a statue, and I said that during the season. At the end of the season, by the end of the season, with his knee injury, he couldn't move, and that's different than what we saw last year. Remember the touchdown run against Boston College? He was more mobile, and you could see his body change over the season. Right, a few extra pounds. He couldn't move around. He just stood back there. So it may be a totally different DJ when he gets healthy, or somewhat different, I guess I should say. I don't know if you should expect totally different, but a different DJ if he's healthy, and that will be intriguing to see in the spring.
Yeah, it will be. I hope he gets healthy. I don't know what it's going to be, if it's a knee scope. He apparently still had his finger in a cast too for Iowa State, so obviously something's going on there in his hand. I hope he's everything that as advertised, because obviously we saw it. I know he had Amari Rodgers. I know he had Cornell Powell. I know he had a decent offensive line and a good defense a year ago, but that he isn't far away from Notre Dame, DJ. That wasn't just an enigma, I wouldn't think. Apparently he had some personal things going on this year too. So hopefully, you get a psychologist in there, figure him out, get his knee scoped, or do whatever you need to do, get him healthy, and at least let's have a good competition going into the spring and fall. Let the best man win, and if Klubnik's that guy 4 weeks into the season, we enjoyed you, DJ, but we know you're going to end up in that portal too. Like in the Dr. Pepper commercial where he's looking at the portal.
No doubt. All right. Hey, you brought up allclemson.com earlier, Jason Priester and the guys over there, Brad Sinkiff, and who I've done podcasts with. Brad's a good guy. And I think Will Vandervoort's over there now, and
Zach Lentz.
I couldn't remember Zach. His name escaped me for a second there. Yesterday they had on their podcast, they had Monty Lee on, and talking about the baseball season, which is coming up shortly. It's getting near softball season too. You and Nelson and I had a lot of fun with that last year. Hopefully we'll run it back this year and have more fun, some more fun on softball. But Monty's encouraged by his team, and I guess all coaches are at this time of season. But first losing season since 1957 last year. I think there's some pressure on Monty this season. New AD, an AD that didn't hire him. So it could be an interesting baseball season for Clemson coming up.
Yeah, and last year, I think I watched that podcast on all Clemson SI. 2021, Zach Lentz said it. It was a weird year. It was a COVID year. It was just anything that felt like could go wrong for Clemson baseball, even from a health standpoint, did. They were just down a bunch of players, but the recruiting class is high again this year. I think he's loaded up again with some good arms. I have to dig in a little bit as to who's returning. I know my boy Brewer's returning.
He's playing center.
He's playing center field?
Yeah, they moved him over.
Well, that's good because that Teodosio's gone. So, I'm excited about this. Cade, the first baseman, he's back too.
Caden
Grice, and then they have the catchers. Anyway, so I think on paper they look as good as probably the 2 to 3, 4 in the ACC, which is good enough for a regional probably, and we'll see. I'm going to dig in deep on this. I'd love to see Clemson back above the 500 mark in a regional. It doesn't necessarily have to be hosting this year, but you're right. The fan base is stirring a little bit on Monty Lee, and I have all the faith in the world in Monty Lee. I think he's a great coach. I think he's the guy. I just don't know what the disconnect is. I don't like them how they're playing swinging for the fence all the time, and first and second, nobody out. You got to get those guys to second and third. Houston burned it tonight. Hate that. We text all the time during baseball games, screaming at our TVs or phones or whatever it may be. But so he does do some He's an analytics guy. He's a boomer
Definitely is
bust
that.
guy, but we got to get some arms too that are going to be able to hold down some of these other teams in the ACC, the Georgia Techs, the Wakes, the Florida States. I mean, you name it. You go up and down that North Carolina. You go up and down the conference. There's no off weekends in the ACC anymore. But I'm excited for it. We're a month away, I think, from first pitch.
Yeah, about a month away. One of the things Monty talked about yesterday was, and he didn't use it as an excuse, but he mentioned it, right? Was all the injuries, and not the starting rotation. He said, we get one guy back and somebody else would go out. We lose a guy for 3 weeks and put somebody else in the starting rotation. We get the first guy back and the second guy, would be injured, and it was just this constant shifting of roles within the pitching staff, and it just happened. I mean, it happened with the football team this year. I mean, you're running out Will Sweeney as a starting wide receiver, a wide receiver you. So I don't. He. The other thing he talked about that stuck in my mind was he talked about the leadership, and maybe there was some leadership missing from last year's team. And John Chancey says new AD might be busy finding a new men's basketball coach for a little while. We're not talking about basketball.
Yeah,
tonight,
you notice
Chancey.
that obvious missing,
Yeah.
obvious skip from football talk to baseball talk.
And there's our guy, JP. Got to have some consistency in the rotation for sure. JP, chime in, but I think the other thing he talked about was leadership. I don't know if that was missing last year, but he was saying he had to call a lot of the team meetings. He prefers that the players, manage the team within themselves as much as possible. Obviously, he's being paid well, but the point is that your players need to have some accountability within the team structure. I even had that in high school, right? The seniors were the guys who were there before me were the ones that we looked up to and figured out when we screwed up more than the coach. So hopefully there's some more leaders developing within the team or have developed over the last season. We can hope for some consistency in the pitching staff, as JP pointed out, and we'll see what happens. Like you said, it's about a month away.
I think the thing with in the Leggett era, and Leggett certainly had his detractors, but in the Leggett era, you knew who was going out there every Friday, Saturday, Sunday. You knew it. From my first year at Clemson, when it was Benson, Koch, and Vining, you knew Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Friday you had Chris Benson. Saturday you had Billy Koch. Sunday you had Ken Vining. You just knew what it was. You knew during the week it was Ryan Model. And then Model slides into the weekend rotation when you lose somebody. So it's just the fact that we're seeing when we get the weekend updates from the school talking about the pitchers on the weekend, and you see, pitcher A for Friday, TBA, you're like,
yeah,
how can you even get consistency? And it's almost good for it's not almost, it is good for the guys too, to know that barring injury, they're going every Saturday. So now they're on a schedule. They're on a 7-day get right schedule. They know who the weekend guys are going to be, even out of the bullpen. You don't necessarily have to go Johnny Hallstaff until you get later on to the ACC tournament or even into the regionals. But even in the regional games, you know who's going to go game 1 and game 2, game 3. Even if you mix it up a little bit and go with the lefty in between the two righties, whatever it may be, it's frustrating as a fan, especially from what I've known through the years, to not know who I don't even know the guys right now who's going to be back, and that's unlike me to who prides himself on knowing the baseball team. I can't even tell you who's going to be the solid. Is Caden Grice going to get a chance on the hill this year? Or are they just going to stick him at first and just let him hit DH or whatever? You don't know.
Well, that's why you and I are going to do some Twitter Spaces with Jason Priester. If JP's still up for it, we talked about this, and I touched base with Jason a while ago about it, and he's the guy to let us know what's happening with the Clemson baseball team. JP, you do that for us, and I'll keep some stats for you, some baseball stats for you that hopefully you can use.
That'd be awesome.
In your articles and stories. Some of the things that you're talking about, Casey, is what I want to focus on is moving guys over, playing playing ball the right way, kind of take some of the stats from the major leagues and apply them to Clemson baseball. It's not apples to apples necessarily, but it just gives you a general idea of what they're doing or not
That's really
doing.
cool. And I'm not
And
even talking about it like old school. Now, I guess part of what I'm saying is old school mentality, but it's also evolving. I mean, you have first. I know it's so simple, but you have first and second, nobody out. You got to do whatever it takes nowadays, especially when there's no bunting and no one knows how to bunt. Get your bat on the ball and put it to the right side of the infield. Sorry, I'm a baseball guy, but like, I don't care if it's a dribbler. A dribbler gets those two guys over, and now it's second and third, one out, the base hit scores two, a fly. You can score on an out. Like, that's just little stuff. It is old school small ball, but it's still evolving. It's still relevant today, even with guys not bunting. You can get your hand. You have 3 strikes to get your bat on a ball. And I'm sorry, in the college game, very few people are complete swing and miss guys. There's way too many swing and miss guys at the plate now. And it's been frustrating for Clemson fans. Obviously, I got a little fired up and a little warm.
no doubt. But here's the thing: look at the good teams in college baseball. Who sticks out in the ACC? Louisville. What do? They bunt. They take extra
They
bases.
run.
They steal bases. Yeah, exactly. And they have great pitching too.
And they usually have 2 guys that are top. Yeah.
Yeah. But I mean,
Clemson's had that in the past. That's the problem. That's the thing I think that I get so. And I love Monty. I think he's the right guy. But that's the thing. That was Jack Leggett's thing, and not bunting necessarily. But he ran that trick play with the whole with the getting in a rundown between first and second to make sure he steals a run if there's first and third. Yeah. With 2 outs, he'll send the guy to get in a rundown at first. Like it worked almost all the time when he was there. But it was just innovative even back that long, and now it's kind of gone away. So everything that I'm used to watching with Clemson baseball is now like, oh, this is going to happen. No, it doesn't happen anymore. So I hope it changes this year because I want Monty to be the guy.
You hit something. You hit a nerve for me. By the way, JP says he's all in on our Twitter Spaces. And he said Casey is on fire, nailing it. All true. But you hit something that really is my pet peeve is the base running has been horrible. How many outs do these guys make on the bases? I mean, there's 2 or 3 a game.
We joke on it with text messages.
Yeah. It's you can't give up outs. You can't give up outs on the bases. There's base hits that are turned into outs. Sometimes double plays. I want to see that improved. That just drives me nuts because I couldn't hit the ball over the fence in high school, but I could run the dang bases because that's want to, right? That's kind of how you say it in football. You know, there's certain things that certain players can't do, but there's other things that are want to. You have to want to be a good base runner and a good bunter, but like you said, that's kind of out of the game.
I don't want to stick on this forever, but I'm going to add one more thing. My favorite Clemson baseball player ever was Herman Demick, and I don't know if anyone remembers Herman Demick, but he was about 4'8", 115 pounds, yoked. He's actually like a professional workouter guy now, but
workouter guy, technical term.
He was in one of those CrossFit National World Championship kind of things, but he used to hit a home run. He hit probably 3 to 5 home runs a year from second base. And he would hit a home run and sprint around the bases, literally sprint around the bases. He actually worked for me when I was at Clemson working there. And I would ask him, like, what are you doing? He's like, the quicker I get home, the quicker the big bats can come up. And that was just his want. He was literally one of the shortest dudes. He ended up getting drafted, had a couple of years in the minors, but before going out into the professional world. But I just guys like that aren't the biggest, that aren't the strongest. I'm not saying we don't need those guys. We need them because I think we had Michael Johnson behind Herman Demick and Andy D'Alessio and those guys back in the day. But you had your Herms who were going to steal a base, who were going to run the bases well, who were going to occasionally hit a bomb and sprint around the bases. He sprinted to first. There were times that he would get to second. It was just he was so much fun to watch, and that was the mentality of the Clemson baseball back in the 90s and early 2000s.
You need those guys. You need those guys to be on base
when the Caden
Grices come up and their 400-foot home runs aren't solo shots, right? They're 2-run or
But
3-run shots.
I love Brewer because I feel like he could be that guy. Like he's not the biggest, he's not the strongest, but he's the guy that could be the straw that stirs the drink.
Yep. You need both kinds of guys, right? You need guys to get on base by any way they can, and you need guys that hit the ball over the fence.
Obviously, I could talk Clemson baseball all day long,
and we will. We will. We talked a little bit about softball. It's going to be hard to top last year, but man, those ladies are fun to watch. And doing the highlights and the videos I send out almost every day. I was running through some Valerie Cagle the other day, and holy moly, it's so much fun to watch. And the announcer guy sounded like he was 120, older than me. Sounded like he was 120, but he was so excited about Valerie Cagle's home runs. It was just so much fun to watch, and it's gonna be hard to top last year though. So we'll see.
Very hard to top, but they got a really nice recruiting class, and if you look at the roster top to bottom, they really only lost 2, maybe 3 contributing players. Yeah, probably 3. But anyway, and they're going to replace them. Your core's back. You got Cagle back, who just won a gold medal a couple months ago with the under 18 team, which is like under 18. Holy moly! But she's already on the Team USA's not full roster yet, but on their radar. And so it's really nice to have a cornerstone piece like that on your team, and we saw her on the mound for Team USA, the under 18 national world championships, and she was lights out against the world. So it's really nice.
World.
Now, are they going to go and lose to Alabama again in the regional first round? Maybe, but I think the schedule is a little tougher this year. There's loaded up some SEC teams. When they go to Florida, they play a couple Pac-12 teams down there. So we're going to know pretty early just how they're going to be able to compete. But I wouldn't put all our eggs in that basket to realize early that on. I can't speak. I'm sorry. That early on to tell you how the season's going to go. But it's going to be nice to see how Clemson. I think they play Washington, so it's going to be nice to see how Clemson matches up with a team of that stature that early on. But they're going to be fun. They're going to be fun.
They have like 13 games in Florida to start the season, or something, 10, 12, 13. I looked at it the other day. I don't remember exactly, but they don't even play at Clemson until like the 14th game or something like that. Rob Schreiber says, Miss Cagle is a Ruthian figure. Enjoy her while she's there. Hey, here's a good thing about softball. They're typically going to be there for 4 years, right? And maybe 5 with the COVID year.
Now, I don't know how it works, Marty, but Cagle's been on Clemson campus 2 years. This is her 3rd year, but she was on the under 18 national champion or national team.
Yeah.
So was she 16 when she came to Clemson, or is she 19? And there's a cutoff. That's probably more what the thing is. But
that was it when I was growing up. This is how old I am, Casey. Brad Daugherty at North Carolina was 16 when he went to UNC. You imagine that, playing in the ACC? Parker's 15 and a half now. I can't even. He would be at the YMCA if he could be. But anyway, that's crazy. Hey, before we go any further, I wanted to say JP's in the comments. Allclemson.com. He's a good friend of Casey and ours. Helps us out all the time. Keeps that Facebook group humming with his posts and stories all day. JP, we appreciate you. Appreciate everything you've done for that, and it's been a lot of fun getting to know you, and hopefully we can collaborate in the future some more. But allclemson.com, JP Priester, appreciate all your contributions. I don't know if Casey left us. Are you there, Casey?
I'm here. I'm sorry. I don't have my script
there. You are
for there the end. So
okay. I'll do the end. I'll be cool at the end. Over on seldomnewserve.com, I wrote about Dabo's record. Here's a couple interesting things. Obviously, it's good. 115-36. I mean, there's not many teams he lost to. And what's interesting is there's a couple of Big East teams that he's 0-1 against in Nebraska, I think, in that first bowl game. But I put it up by team and conference because it's just intriguing to me. But here's another one I didn't put up. He's 30-3 against teams from North Carolina. So North Carolina, NC State, Duke, and Wake. He's never lost to Wake or Duke, but he's 30-3 against teams from North Carolina, and he's 42-3 against teams from North Carolina, Virginia. Never lost to Virginia or Virginia Tech. Um,
Wow.
just kind of amazing. He had some struggles against Georgia Tech early, back when they were good under Paul Johnson, and of course Florida State when they were really good. But I just found that fascinating. Think about that. Against teams from North Carolina and Virginia, he's 42-3 against those guys. So, wow, just amazing. But the whole thing is amazing. If you look through those individual numbers, he's dominated the ACC. Georgia Tech, Florida State, as I said, gave him a run. There were some early problems with South Carolina. That's been fixed, by the way, for 7 straight years. But it's just interesting to read through there 2-2 against Alabama. On and on. Okay, but more to come on seldomnewsreserve.com in the coming weeks or months. And speaking of seldomnewsreserve.com, how about the chop and beef? You chopping beef tomorrow?
I don't believe so. I think I'm chasing the weather tomorrow, so I will be on the road after I have a work event late in Columbia tomorrow. So I'm going to probably get back on the road and head back to the low country to avoid some of the snow. So I don't think we're going to be able to do chopping beef tomorrow, but it's a wait and see.
All right. And speaking of not tomorrow, we are not going to have the show next week. Casey's on the road traveling. He's gracious enough to spend an hour or so with me today. I appreciate that. We're going to give him next week off as he travels the state to feed the fam. And maybe we'll be back in 2 weeks, but we'll obviously keep you up to date on Twitter and social media. Casey, I'll do the closeout tonight since you are not able to do so. You're on your phone. Thank everybody in the Southern Reserve College Football Discussion Facebook group. I mentioned JP Priester. I also want to mention Nelson Wilhite, who keeps that place in order. If you break the rules, Nelson's going to get you. And he's got a couple of people this week. So just read the rules, pay attention. Just be nice and no politics.
Be nice.
How about that? Be nice and no politics. I could have just put 2 rules, right?
That's really all it should be.
Yep. John Chansey, his work on seldomnewsreserve.com. He's written books, and he emailed me today and said he's got some more books planned. But it'll take a while. But appreciate John Chansey. You know what, Casey? He got paid in Seldom News Reserve stickers today and a magnet that he put on his fridge. I am the best boss there is, right? Stickers and a magnet. Uncle John McGee. This is your guy, Casey. I know him from the Sluggo Facebook page, but who is Uncle John McGee to you? Your uncle?
So he's my wife's uncle, but he just always likes the show and he shares it. So I'm not sure how much he watches. He does watch occasionally, but you think I travel a lot? That guy travels all over the place. So when we can lock him down, he does come and kind of poke his face in for a little bit. So it's just nice to have his support, and so I want to make sure that I shout him out every week.
That is nice to know. And speaking of family members, did you know that I wore that one time? I wore that Sugarland Skeeters T-shirt. Do you know they will no longer be the Skeeters this year? They're going to be, check this out, the Sugarland Space Cowboys. Houston, cool. Texas, Space Cowboys. Yeah, I told Parker that, and he goes, "That's so minor leaguer-ish."
I'm going to buy the hat, though, I'll be honest.
Oh, yeah, new shirt, new hat, new everything. Sugarland Space Cowboys. Also, wanted to thank each and every one of you who listens, likes, and shares. This is fun for Casey and I. Casey even does it when he's traveling. And we appreciate it. It's a lot of fun for us. So on behalf of Casey the Beef Cregan, Smarty Seldom News Reserve Coleman, I forgot the point. On behalf of Casey the Beef Cregan and Marty Seldom News Reserve Coleman, or Black Mart, not Black Bart, Black Mart we used to call him, appreciate you tuning in, and we'll see you probably in a couple of weeks. Does that sound about right, Case? A couple of weeks?
Yes, sir.
All right. Later, Case.
Thank you. Good night.